Calvin Johnson's going to be on Dancing with the Stars, so that immediately led us to say, is he a Hall of Famer? If I said yes or no right now, Calvin Johnson, how would you answer?
Yes.
Okay. Whose stats would...
Because we can't be slaves to numbers. You must respect somebody's numbers, but you can't be slaves to numbers. You have to look at how a guy played versus other receivers in his era, and the respect he got from the corners, from defensive coordinators. I just think, I'm not saying he's a singular receiver in his time, but he certainly is one of the great receivers of a time when receivers are at the peak impact in NFL history.
All right. I know it's always a tough topic for you because you're in that room and it gets heated. You guys are rarely complimented on, hey, great job in the Hall of Fame class here. So,
yeah.
Let's see. What else do I want to ask you? What's more interesting for you, the Broncos quarterbacking situation, the Cowboys quarterbacking situation, or San Francisco's quarterbacking situation?
Well, San Francisco's quarterback situation is interesting from an MSNBC point of view. When I poll my Twitter followers on Sunday night, and in a 2-hour period, more than 9,000 respond. I've never had more than 1,000 people in any poll I've ever done, but more than 9,000 respond. And they basically are 50-50, split down the middle. It's 51-49, okay, that on whether Colin Kaepernick, should have done what he did. And does he have the right to do what he do? 9,630 votes. It's incredible. So for the front page of the Daily News impact, in our society today where we're so divided, that one. But in a football, I'll just say with Denver, what impresses me so much is how Gary Kubiak handled this. He never handed this job to Mark Sanchez. He said, let the best man win. He opened the competition for 4 months, and the best man won. Consistently, Trevor Siemian was better. Now, that's not to say he's going to do a great job, but I like when a coach says the best man will play, and then he doesn't gerrymander the rules as he goes along. I think he did a really good job. As far as Dallas goes, Dan, I just look at Dallas and say that I'll never forget being with the Cowboys on draft weekend and watching Stephen Jones for 67 minutes and at least 19 phone calls with 9 teams. That period of time, that effort, trying to get Paxton Lynch. And Stephen Jones told me Sunday afternoon, we would not right now trade Dak Prescott for Paxton Lynch straight up. Now, he's going to say that. He's going to say that. But in Dallas camp, where I was for a day and a half, there's a love affair with Dak Prescott going on.
Are we overreacting to Dak Prescott?
Of course, but that's what happens in the preseason. And, what are you going to do? But, you don't want to, when you look around at the NFL, okay, and when you look around and see the fact that Carson Wentz has done nothing this preseason because he's been hurt, Jared Goff has been shaky for the Rams, even though you could look at it and say, well, Jared Goff played against the ones a lot more than Dak Prescott did. So you look at this and you basically say, everybody relax, take your time, just let the guy play, and we'll see if he's any good. But you'd have to be encouraged watching him be an 80% passer with 138 rating in 3 games.
He's Peter King, the MMQB.com, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. You got one question to Colin Kaepernick. What do you ask?
You seem like you are willing right now to sacrifice your career for this story. Why now? Why are you doing it right now? And look, I think a lot of people, Dan, will say that, hey, where has this been all the time with Colin Kaepernick? Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really unfair. people evolve. They change their mind. And I'm not going to compare this situation directly to that, but, for 25 years, I called them the Washington Redskins. And I just think that the name is wrong right now. I don't think you should, use a name that, even though the Washington Post poll said that the vast majority of Native Americans don't mind the name, I think there's enough who do that I would not walk up to somebody and say, "Hello, Redskin." So I have a respect for that, and that's why I'm not going to use the name anymore. And I think Colin Kaepernick got to the point that he basically said, I can't sit quietly anymore and watch this. So I applaud him. But whether he's willing to, I'm not saying sacrifice his career, but whether he's willing for his career to take a hit because of this, that's what I'd want to explore with him.
A couple other topics. Joey Bosa is finally in camp. What was solved here with both sides?
Not anything at all. The Chargers basically said, look, the way we do rookie contracts is that we defer some of the bonus money till the following year. It doesn't seem to me to be worth it to hold out to really adversely affect your rookie year, which Joey Bosa was willing to do. I mean, why would anybody really care whether you, and I'm going to invent these numbers because I don't know what they are, get $10 million or $12 million this year and then $4 million in 2017? Who on earth cares? Is that worth holding out for a month? It wouldn't be to me. I would be telling my agent, hey, forget this. I want to be in camp. And the offset language, I think, is really, in my opinion, it's a Trojan horse. I don't think it's important, but a lot of agents and a lot of players think it is. I don't think anything was gained at all, and I don't think it'll mean anything next year, except that the agent will prove that he's not that he's got enough guts to hold a guy out of camp. And again, he's going to have to determine whether that's going to help him get players or not next year.
More likely to miss the playoffs, Carolina or Denver?
I mean, I guess you'd say Denver because of the quarterback situation and because of a very strong division with the exception of San Diego. And on the other hand, you'd look at Carolina and say it's a weak division and they got everybody back pretty much. So I'd probably say Denver, but I still think Denver is going to make the playoffs.
Your Super Bowl pick, do you have it?
I don't have it yet. I'm mulling around 4 teams right now. I've decided in the NFC it's a team from the upper Midwest. But I'd like to have a few more days to mull it around, Dan, if you don't mind. And, Dan, by the way, I know that nobody has said this to you, but welcome back from South America.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. It's good to be back. I never thought that I would embrace our homeland quite like I did when I landed. I was very happy to be back. Very happy.
Did you have a good time?
It's a lot of work. Because people think, boy, you're on the beach. I'm not on the beach. I mean, I'm working on the beach. Boy, all those great events. Well, I'm working while you're watching those great events. So my family's like, oh, yeah, really looks like tough work over there, Dad. And I go, I'm working. So I didn't get to.
Hey, Dan, you know what? If I can just take 30 seconds, you know what was interesting? Because I don't get to watch these things. I'm going from training camp to camp and all that stuff. But what was so interesting is so many players loved the Olympics. They loved Usain Bolt. Mm-hmm. After the Chargers-Cardinals preseason game a couple of weeks ago, we're led into the Chargers locker room after the game, and King Dunlop and 4 guys are all like peering into his smartphone, watching a replay of the Usain Bolt gold medal relay. And they're fired up. And everywhere I went, Carson Palmer said, man, I love the volleyball. I mean, it was just Johnny Hecker, man, Simone Biles, best athlete I've ever seen, and things like that. It was really, really interesting to see the hold that the Olympics had on NFL players.
I've said to people, if you really want to be able to see an NFL game, being on the sidelines gives you a completely different perspective. And watching Usain Bolt run in person is completely different than watching him run on TV. And then when I saw Tony Dungy there, I said, Tony, could you use him as a wide receiver? And he said, I would just spread him out and let him go. And, he said, but all it takes is one hit. And then Usain Bolt will run differently once one of those guys.
Yeah.
Cam Chancellor hits him. Usain Bolt all of a sudden is not the fastest man in the world.
I had one coach say to me, we were just standing around talking, and he said, what you would do is you would put a strong safety in the 5-yard bump zone, and you just try to abuse him because obviously he's going to get behind any corner.
Yeah,
and so that. But it would be really interesting. I didn't hear any general managers, and I asked a few, do you have any interest in signing Usain Bolt? I think that they would be so cautious and so reticent simply because I don't think he's played football, and so it would be difficult for him.
Yeah. Well, plus he makes so much money. When you're making $25-30 million in track, there's no reason. Bob Hayes needed to make money. That's why he went from
that's a very good point.
Very good point. Pete, thanks for joining us as always. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Hey, all the best, Dan. Take care.
Peter King.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.